Sad news. A beloved star from one of America's most famous shows has died. A lot of people knew Malcolm-Jamal Warner as Theo Huxtable from The Cosby Show.
He died very suddenly at the age of 54.
Fans and people who worked with the family are shocked by the shocking cause of death, a sudden drowning. What really happened in those last few seconds? And why are there rumors of a secret surrounding his sudden death? Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will shock all old TV fans to their core. Most likely, when you think of The Cosby Show, you think of Theo Huxtable, the happy, smart kid who brought warmth, humor, and heart to millions of homes across America. For a long time, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was more than just a TV figure. We thought of him as family. He was a big part of pop culture in the 1980s and 1990s. But Malcolm-Jamal Warner is no longer alive. He was only 54 years old. Hollywood and the rest of the world are shocked by the news of his sudden death. Early reports say the well-known actor died in what is being called a sad drowning accident. But that explanation doesn't answer all of my questions. Where did it take place? Was it a mistake? And why are his close friends and family worried about his mental health and what he may have been going through behind the scenes? This video will take you deep into the last moments of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's life. It will also look at his legacy on screen and show unspoken truths about the fights he fought off screen that fans never saw coming. Also, close friends, family, and people who knew the person well will tell us how shocked they were by the quick death. And some say this wasn't just a freak accident but the sad result of years of mental and silent pain. The autopsy report showed things that you won't believe. You won't believe who was with him right before he died. You won't believe how much this tragedy is like the death of another famous person not long ago. This story goes deeper than the headlines make it seem, so don't click away. A sad look at fame, stress, and a man who showed the world his best side while hiding the worst. At first it was just another day, quiet, peaceful, and nothing special. By the end, though, the world would have lost one of the most recognizable faces from an age of TV stars. On July 18, 2025, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was said to be staying at a private home near a quiet lake in upstate New York. He loved nature, music, and being alone, so he went to that area a lot over the years. He often called it his peace zone, a place where he could disconnect from the chaos of Hollywood, think and write music. People close to the family say that Malcolm got there by himself just 2 days before. His assistant told him that he had just finished working on a new project, a spoken-word music record that he had been making in secret for a few months. Friends say he looked tired but happy, thoughtful but not distant. Around 8 a.m. that terrible morning, Malcolm's neighbors told police they saw him walking near the lake, with a coffee in hand and headphones on. Looks like they are thinking a lot. By noon he had been seen again, this time going into the water without a shirt on. It wasn't strange. He often swam or thought there. What happened next, though, is still a secret. At 3:27 p.m., someone in a nearby cabin called 911. A walker saw what looked like a man floating face down in the water and not moving. Within 12 minutes, emergency workers came and pulled Malcolm out of the lake. They tried to revive him on the spot, but he wasn't responding. He was declared dead soon after getting to the hospital. The news came like a lightning bolt in the showbiz world. Where is Malcolm-Jamal Warner? Fans were shocked. Within hours there were a lot of tributes. But the questions had only just started. When the first autopsy report came out to the news 2 days later, it said that the person had drowned accidentally. There are no signs of wrongdoing, no bruises that look fishy, but the toxicology reports were marked pending, which made people even more interested. The police also saw that Malcolm was the only person at the lake house that day. His things, including his phone, were found on the dock along with a journal and his Bluetooth speaker, which was still playing soft jazz when help came. The story then goes in a very different direction. Why did someone who was always in good shape, smart, and used to being outside drown on a quiet, sunny afternoon? What did he write in his diary that was found next to the water? Who was the last person to talk to him before it got quiet? The schedule for that day leaves a spooky gap between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., a window during which no one saw him, no texts were sent, and no one was seen moving around the lake house. Some people think he might have had a quick medical event in the water, like a seizure or passing out. Some people say that this might not have been a mistake at all. Malcolm's close friends say that he is very emotional, thinks a lot about himself, and has been strangely quiet lately. It was said that he was staying away from Hollywood by turning down scripts and focused on poetry and music instead. Some of it was called dark and personal, but what he may have brought into that water with him is really mysterious. It may have been a lifetime of stress, pain, and public expectations surrounding the past of one of the most controversial TV shows ever. The Cosby Show was more than just a sitcom for many Americans. It changed the way people thought. A black family from the top middle class that is shown with love, humor, and respect. A picture that broke down assumptions and changed how people saw things. At the center of that family was Theo Huxtable, Cliff and Claire's charming and often naughty son. The person behind them was Malcolm-Jamal Warner, someone who was 14 years old when they were thrust into the public eye. He wasn't making up a story. Tens of millions of people watch him every week as a kind of black childhood icon in America. The stress to be flawless, well-groomed, and inspiring didn't end when the cameras stopped running. It stayed with him as an adult and quietly affected every choice he made. Malcolm has said in talks over the years that he had a hard time with fame. He was thankful for the platform, but he also said he felt stuck. He felt like his whole personality had been squished into one part. I had to be more than just Malcolm. I was Theo all the time. Even at age 40, Bill Cosby fell apart. Malcolm had once called Cosby a guide, a father figure, and even America's dad. When Cosby was found guilty of sexual assault in 2018, it did more than just hurt his reputation. It broke the show's basis, which put Malcolm on the map. Imagine having to carry the weight of being a part of something that millions of people loved, and then watching it be remade as toxic, controversial, even unforgivable. Malcolm kept quiet about the Cosby incident and was careful about what he said. He never defended Cosby, but he also never strongly condemned him either. Some people were angry about the silence while others felt sorry for them. But behind the scenes, his friends say it was really hard on him mentally. Someone else said he was torn apart. He thought he had lost a father figure, and also couldn't talk about her grief without being misread. Malcolm's public image wasn't the only thing that changed because of the Cosby scandal. His work on a number of projects was put on hold. There weren't as many interviews. People talked in the casting rooms. Are they still together? Will people get angry? It looked like Theo's shadow turned into a curse instead of a crown. Malcolm started to focus on music, directing, and spoken word poetry as a career. These were quieter types of art that gave him more control. Jazz helped him feel better, and the songs he wrote were often very honest and touched on identity, loss, and looking for peace. Some of the people who worked with him said he often came to the studio or set feeling intense and thoughtful, and that he would sometimes go off by himself between takes. Malcolm stopped recording in the middle of a take, looked out the window, and said softly, "Do you ever feel like you peaked too early and now the world is just waiting for you to disappear?" These weren't just random thoughts, they were signs of a bigger problem inside. A man who was trying to balance a legacy that millions of people looked up to with a personal truth that he couldn't get away from. And that truth, there was still something Malcolm was looking for but never found. Freedom. Freedom from the person, the show, the demands, and maybe even the pain. Friends say he wasn't officially diagnosed with depression, but many people now think he may have been going through a lot of pain and not telling anyone. The kind of pain that doesn't make you scream, but whispers through broken plans, long absences, and mysterious journal entries. A pain that can't be seen until it's too late. It didn't just shock many people who knew Malcolm-Jamal Warner when they heard that he had drowned alone and quietly far from Hollywood. They were scared because they knew it was going to happen but couldn't stop it. As the entertainment world still reels from Malcolm-Jamal Warner's shocking death, longtime fans, friends, and people who worked with him are all asking the same painful question. Were there clues? Malcolm had been strangely detached in the weeks before he tragically drowned and died. The people who were close to him remember getting short, unclear answers to texts, missing calls, and last-minute cancellations of shows and studio sessions. A spoken word and jazz fusion record that he hadn't named yet was what he called his most personal project yet. Few people who heard early tracks said it was haunting, almost like a funeral, and full of questions about life, leaving a memory, and letting go. It was said that one line from a demo track said, "Fame is a funeral with flowers that never die, but the soul they honor is long gone." Now that we can look back on it, those words are seen in a very different and sad way. In Atlanta, Malcolm was recording, and an assistant producer told the other producer that Malcolm had suddenly left the box during one late-night session, sat down on the ground, and looked into the void for almost 10 minutes. When someone asked him if he was okay, he just nodded and whispered, trying to feel something again. Before he died, he hadn't shared on Instagram in more than 3 weeks. There are a lot of comments on that last post now, asking why we didn't notice. It shows a black and white picture of a barely lit microphone and says, "And please tell me this isn't goodbye." Sometimes the silence is louder than any stage. Some people see that post as a mysterious goodbye. Some people think it was a frantic plea for help. The unanswered texts that were found on his phone after he died are even scarier. A close friend with limited access from the family said that several draft texts were left unsent to friends and past co-stars. One of these texts was to Rudy Huxtable, Kesha Knight Pulliam, and it simply said, "You are the light on set, always remember that. I'm sorry, I got lost in the dark." Another message that wasn't sent yet to an unknown person said, "Don't blame anyone if I disappear." This time the tide was too strong. It's not clear if these messages were written when the person was emotionally worn out or if they were saying goodbye in some way. Malcolm's manager confirmed that he had no big projects or appearances planned for the rest of the year, which was not like him at all. He had even put off writing a book that he had been hinting at for more than 10 years. It was going to be an honest account of his life as a child star and how he survived a broken industry. Some sources say the book was almost done, but it is said that his editor broke down in tears after reading part of the last chapter. The chapter was called "Drowning on Dry Land, a Strange Happenstance or a Scary Sign." Malcolm's close friends and family are still trying to understand how terrible his loss is. The tragedy for them is not only how he died, but also how little they knew about the mental storm he had been going through for years. To honor him, a close friend said, "He was the kind of person who always made you feel seen, but we forgot to see him." All of a sudden, Malcolm-Jamal Warner died. The news stopped the world for a moment. People couldn't believe what they were reading on social media and in their timelines. The general feeling was shock, sadness, and respect. He wasn't just Theo Huxtable, Cliff and Claire's smart and sometimes rebellious kid. In a quiet way, he stood for Black childhood, coming of age, and strength. Many people saw a rare example of a young black man managing life on primetime TV with vulnerability, humor, and intelligence. The whole world reacted. From Hollywood to Harlem, and all the way up to the White House, fans held candlelight vigils. Some did this outside of NBC's old Cosby Show studio in Brooklyn, while others did it at the Hollywood Walk of Fame, where they left flowers, letters, and old VHS tapes of old shows. A muralist in Harlem, who had long admired Malcolm's work, painted a huge tribute that said, "Theo taught us to dream." Fans of the Huxtable family, who watched every Thursday night as kids, quickly shared the painting all over Instagram, starting a movement called #Theo Forever. Co-stars say the emotional tributes from the group. He got the most moving honors from people who had worked with him before and grown up with him on and off screen. Claire Huxtable and Felicia Rashad put out a written statement. He was more than just a son on TV. In every way, he was family. Every step he took was filled with grace, pain, joy, and purpose. The world has lost a kind soldier. Rudy Huxtable and Kesha Knight Pulliam put up a movie that made people cry. I called him Big Brother Malcolm back then. He looked out for me, made me laugh, and taught me poems when I had no idea what rhythm meant. I'm really broken. Vanessa Bledsoe plays Tempest, shared a picture of the two of them from 1990, and wrote, "We were babies. We laughed at everything. I cry for you all the time now. Mac, take a break. You were important." Lisa Bonet, who is known for being private and far away from Hollywood these days, sent out a short but powerful message. When he was alone, he was as quiet as a storm. I always thought he had more going on than what he showed. It was a quiet farewell at the funeral. The family of Malcolm held a private funeral in Los Angeles because they wanted to keep their honor in the midst of all the media attention. A small group of close friends, past cast members, and musicians and poets who had worked with him over the years were invited to a memorial service in Pasadena that took place in an old chapel. Sources say the room was full of black and white pictures of Malcolm from over the years, showing him in his early days on the set, at jazz concerts, and in casual, thoughtful times. When a tape of Malcolm's spoken word poetry played during the service, it was one of the most moving parts. He read, "If I leave without saying goodbye, remember the rhythm, not the silence." His voice echoed off the walls of the church. "Don't remember the fall, remember the fight, and sound like music when you say my name." No one in the room could keep their eyes from crying. Malcolm's death affected more than just his friends and family. Many fans of all ages liked it. Online, adults who watched The Cosby Show as kids cried freely. Young people today shared old videos of Theo fighting for his goals. Fans younger than him who watched reruns with their parents wrote notes about how he made being sensitive look cool. It wasn't just the character who was sad. It was for the time he lived in, the hope he brought, and the future that seems a little less bright without him. One tweet said everything everyone was feeling. He never needed trouble or noise. He gave us art, the truth, and quiet power.